All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Free Friday coaching call. For those of you that are joining for the first time, this call happens the first and third weeks of every month on Fridays. That's the Free Friday coaching call. I know it's rocket science. It used to be Rick's Free Friday coaching call, and the history of how we got here is that my late husband, Rick, for the 43 years that he was in the industry, I was very gracious and generous with his time, energy, and effort. And as he spoke and traveled, coaching and teaching and doing all the things that he did, he would always give out his cell phone number and say, if you need anything, absolutely anything, call me. And so that, as you can imagine, would be a little bit overwhelming when he passed. And I got his phone, and there's 36,000 plus contacts in there, all people that he knew. However, that's who he was. And so, in honor of his legacy and really what we were committed to creating and continuing that, we've kept this call, which is now the Free Friday coaching call. And it is for real estate agents who are committed to learning, to growing, and to continuing to scale up in both mindset and skill set. And so we have different people that volunteer their time, energy, and effort to come contribute to the larger community for the good of everyone's growth. Over 900 people are signed up on the email list that request to get the recording of this after the call happens. And so it's one of my favorite things to do because I love interviewing great people who are doing great things. And so this morning's guest, I'm super excited to introduce everyone to. We're going to hear a little bit about his backstory before we jump into the call today. However, I remember when I met him, the first conversation that we had was through Zoom because he lives in Greenville and well, I'm in California. And what struck me is that there's not a lot of people in my experience that have both of their feet in their shoes, so to speak. And he was really grounded, really authentic, really humble, and very successful. And those traits and qualities in a real estate agent are rare in my experience to have all of those in one package. And so as we got to know each other and have developed the relationship that we have developed, he's somebody that I have a lot of respect and admiration for, not just because of the results that he's produced and created in business, but more importantly because who he is as a person. And so I value you very much, Robby. I thank you so much for being willing to come on the call today. And as we jump into the conversation today, since everyone here, not everyone, however, a good number of people will be meeting you for the first time, would love for you to share just a little bit about your backstory. I know you're 23 years in the industry and run a very successful team and organization. You guys do about 65 million in volume a year and over 150 units, which is a lot of business. But let's go back to the Robby before. What was he doing before real estate, and why did he decide to get into this industry?
That's a long and sordid story. We'll definitely try to give you the skinny version. But Clemson grad, forestry undergraduate degree, master's in education from a small local, well, actually women's college here in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So I taught school for 10 years and wouldn't really trade that. It was a great jumping off spot. But oddly enough, I got into real estate a little bit on a whim. A friend of mine, former teacher, was going to real estate school before there was online real estate school and during the summer, and she sort of twisted my arm. So I went with her just to learn about real estate. No real idea that I would ever work in real estate, and then got really burnt out on teaching, and did not want to be one of those people that sort of 20 years into teaching and you're just be grumpy and counting down the days to retire. So was looking around how to segue. Real estate made a lot of sense to me because you're still teaching, coaching, guiding. A lot of similarities to teaching. Of course, some of the crazy that goes on in real estate is similar to teaching as well. So you're used to a little bit of chaos and things not going in the same order. And so I started with a small independent firm here in Greenville and the individual agent. It was a different time, and some of you probably remember, phone duty. People called in. There was no apps, no smartphones, so people called. And so, between phone duty, open houses, and my sphere of people that I had taught, off to a good start. And then, of course, the Great Recession happened, and that was also a good time to be working with lots of first-time homebuyers. So. Um, After about 8 years, had too much business, could not work at all. And that's when I decided to start a team. And let me tell you, there were lots of mistakes, lots of problems, but we were able to hire some good people and some good coaching and kind of sorted it out. And we are not nowhere near perfect, but we are improving, daily and weekly.
I love that. I love that. So, well, we talk a lot about um, it being a relationship business, obviously. And I love that your teaching background, we're constantly in the education conversation with the consumer and also with agents, right? Because uh, that tends to be a really important piece from a mindset and skill set place, and the necessity of constantly skilling up to become, better at what we do. And so you mentioned that it was about year 8 that you had more business than you can personally handle. And so you decided to start a team at that point. And, we look at the life cycle of a real estate agent, right? Some people, if we look at them in stages, right, they get licensed and it's like, am I going to make it in this profession? And so if they learn how to do it and become a successful solo agent, yes. And then at some point, a successful solo agent realizes like, hey, there's a ceiling. There's only so much that I can personally do. People have romanticized, it seems, the idea of starting teams. So sometimes people will start teams when they don't even have enough business themselves to personally do because they like the idea of it. And then there's the necessity of a team where you have a capacity issue and want to grow. So the for somebody that is going to be focused and serious on their career, they are going to hit a capacity issue. And so talk about what that looked like for you and how you realized that, okay, it's time for me to do something different, look at it differently, go from, okay, I'm a great salesperson now to I actually own and I'm running a business and what that was like.
Yeah, so I got very lucky in some of my decisions. I would not say that I necessarily made always the best decisions, but I got lucky. My first hire was my admin, and she was in a change of life. She had two little kids and needed more flexibility. And so she was a loan processor in her previous life. And so I don't know if I could ever recreate that, but I would say she trained me instead of I trained her, just because she's so smart and so good at what she did with the underwriting and the loan processing that was just invaluable. She would come and kind of almost rip things away from me because how many of us have control issues? And she
Oh,
would.
everybody raise your hand.
If you're on this call, I think you're guilty. Um,
Uh,
so, she was really, really good at sort of forcing me to use her. And I think, if it had been anybody else, it probably would have been a nightmare. Um, and so that was super helpful. She was also good at helping me understand, like, if you do it more than twice, it's a system, right? And you need to systematize everything. It took me a little bit to really even understand what that meant. So she was very instrumental in helping set up some of those systems and helping me with that as well. And then we started with one agent. And, the thing, like Casey said, was just a little bit of a ceiling. You can only really work with so many buyers at one time. So he started out a little bit as a showing assistant, and just helped me with showings and eventually just rolled into, being a buyer agent. And now, he's still with me and is the top producer on the team, last year. So good longevity. But to me, if you're thinking about, expanding or how to do more, the assistant is probably the best first thing you can do. The other thing I would caution is with a team and even with an assistant or, however you frame it, is then you got to manage people. And so that's another skill set that I don't think everybody has, but you can learn, right, how to manage people. So I think that's a big word of warning. And I hear that with some other teams that are sort of dysfunctional. I think the leadership piece is not great.
yeah, so talk a little bit about, the systems. Like you said, if you do something more than twice, you should have a system for it. And there'll be a host of different people that are on this call. Some people that are newer in the business and don't have systems set up yet and are not working with those efficiencies. And then some that are not newer that have just not put systems in place and are working inefficiently. And so what it takes to actually do the business is, it requires different from a capacity standpoint. For you, what would you say are some of the most impactful systems that you put into place that were foundational, that you've continued on with that really make a difference in how your business has run and then been able to grow and scale?
So I think, there's several reasons to have the system, but I think if you are looking to grow and expand, part of the problem is, if Deb comes to me as a buyer, and she works with me, I sort of want her to have the same feel as if then Anthony comes and works with Carl, right? So if I systematize, this is how we onboard the buyer. These are the questions we ask. These are the things that we do. This is how we set up showings. This is how we set up the paperwork for the showing. This email goes out. So just having all that lined up, Anthony's working with Carl, Deb's working with Robby, but overall it feels similar. And I think if you grow a team, you run the risk of losing that. Like the further it gets away from me, right, the easier it is for it to not feel like the Robbie Brady team as I envision it. And so I think that's part of it. And then also same thing with listings, right? Like we want to sort of have that framework of this is how we do the listing, this is how we take the listing, this is how we market the listing. And you've just got your timeline and the touches with the seller. I'm big on contacting the appraiser when they schedule an appointment, right, to give them the comps and the sketch and the updates. And so everybody has to follow that same system, and that has really been super helpful.
I love that. So this is one of the things that I remember hearing from all the conversations that Rick would be in with agents that were solo agents and doing the business is like, well, people want to work with me, and my clients want to work with me. And he would always say, get over yourself. They want to
Mhm.
have the experience of what it's like to work with you. And so, what you're talking about is how you create a duplicatable process through a system that gives somebody that experience under the umbrella and blanket of, in this instance, the Robbie Brady team.
Yep. Exactly.
So, what would you say have been the uh, wish I would have known or wish I would have started or integrated sooner in your experience?
Probably one of the big mistakes early on was, we were sort of like taking loans before the Great Recession. Like if you had a pulse and you could fog a glass and you were excited to be on the team, we were kind of excited to have you. And I think I got lucky in that sense too. I don't have like too many dramatic stories as far as like culture, because I think we did interview on culture fairly well. But I don't think we interviewed well on are they a good fit to be a realtor. So we hired too quickly early on, and I think now we're on the other side of that. So we hire pretty slow. Um, they've got to go through a pretty good process, not just culturally, but do we think they're going to make it? And of course, it's not a perfect system, and I'm not saying we hire perfectly because we don't, but it's much better than it was when we first started. So that to me was probably the biggest thing is just be very careful. And I know the disc assessment, most of you, I'm sure, have taken it, probably familiar with it. It's not the end all be all, but it does help. If you take your cautious, stable person and you shove them into a sales role, like Selena probably is not showing a ton of houses, right? But Selena, I think, unlike a lot of people, has an adaptive style where she could get away with it. So,
Yeah, if
Valid.
Selena can do anything.
correct. Does she like it as her natural state? Probably not, but she can be a chameleon. And so it's just a great tool. And plus, flip flop that around. I don't know everybody on the call, but somebody else that's super extroverted, high I, and you try to give them Selena's job, and it's going to be a train wreck.
Disaster. Their
Right.
books are not going to look like that on the bookshelf behind them.
You don't want me doing books of any kind.
I love that.
Um,
So, one of the things I'm interested to know is as you are Robbie Brady, and so the Robbie Brady team is operating under your vision, and you have assembled a team or created a team based on what that vision is and how you want to work, who you want to be in the marketplace, and finding out who's a match and a fit for that. And one of the things that you're, that in the conversation is clear is there's a standard. Like, are they a fit? Are they a match? Not just culturally, but do we feel like they're a fit and a match because of are they going to make it in the industry, or are they making it in the industry as an agent? And so I'm guessing that the number of people that actually fit what you're building and who you are is not the majority, it's the minority of people. So number one, it's being, clear that that's fine. It's you don't need somebody that can fog a window. You need somebody that's going to be really a match for who you are and what you're about, and that there's more maybe of a timeline and a process to see if somebody's going to be that before. But what I'm interested to know is if you were to, because it's going to be different for everyone. So if you were to think about what is the vision that you have as to who you want to be in the marketplace and what this team was that you wanted to create before the team was created, and so that you know who's a fit and not a fit for that, how did you formulate that and what is it?
So we actually hired a marketing firm to help with that. And so they actually sent out emails and took a survey of our clients. And I'd never been through anything like that in my life. So it was very interesting to me, but it sort of quizzes people on words. They would sort of ask a question. And then so what we got back out of that was, trusted advisor, trustworthy, steady, stable. Like that seemed to really resonate with people. We of course are salespeople in a sense, but we're really not in another sense, right? Like it's a relationship business. And so that is kind of where we thrive. We do some of the workman stuff with the top 50, right? And we coach with them. And so we very much, that was a great fit for us because we very much believe in those relationships and nurturing those relationships and helping people, right? So that is the essence of what we do.
I love that. So I had a call actually just yesterday with someone who was out there with, kind of looking around at what's available for them in different companies. And so they were interviewing with me about what we have to offer. And they're 23 years in the business, team of three. And I said, what's one of the things that's most important to you? Leads. And
Mm.
okay, what's most important to your team members? Leads. And I was clear to me that they'd never been coached through Workman, because the value of being on a team is not leads. However, it's important. And so I'm interested to know how you built this into your culture in having a team is that there is a mindset of agents that don't know because they either haven't been taught or just they have the perception of, oh, I would be on a team so that I can get leads because I'm not going out and getting my own business. And then obviously, in order to be successful in real estate, you've got to be a rainmaker, meaning you got to be able to source and create your own leads, or you're going to go pay Zillow 41% to get one, which is a whole nother conversation that we won't get into on this call. But how does that work for your team and the culture that you have as far as, oh, is it on Robby to provide all of the business that comes into the team and then the team just works it? Or what's the expectations that you have there? And then what is the structure and system that you have set up to close 150 transactions and 65 million a year in business?
So I think that's all very good question. And I think for us, accountability is the key. Accountability and those systems in place and really cuts down on drama too. Like you just almost don't have any as long as you have that accountability and everybody understands what the expectations are. And so it's kind of like the old saying, like, do you want to feed somebody like just giving them a fish, or do you really just want to teach them how to fish? Right. And we want to teach them how to fish. And so we do buy leads, we do that. I think it's just part of what you sort of have to do. But we teach them that that's not easy, right? Like if you can convert 2%, you're doing pretty darn good. So that's kissing a lot of toads, right? To find the prince or princess. And so the top 50 list is big for us. Client events are big for us. And loving on the people that we like and we like to do business with that like and like to do business with us is really paramount, I would argue, to anything else. And so by defining those roles, we meet every day at 9 o'clock. And I have some young team members. And y'all, honestly, half the meeting is to make sure they're out of the bed, they have dressed, and they have brushed their teeth and combed their hair.
I love
Mm.
the it's
So
yes. Yes, let's just say yes.
yeah, yeah. So that that's the low bar piece of the meeting, right? We got our camera on. We're up. We're moving, um, and it's helpful, right? So that's part of it. And then most days it's more of a stand up. So it's what were your successes yesterday? What were your issues? We look at the points that we do. They have a 61 point a day system they're supposed to keep up with. We look at the CRM, we look at their activities, and if there's any issues, we'll go over that. And then on Thursday, we typically do an hour, and that's more of like just more of a training slash sales meeting, more things. So if there's a new tool or something in the industry that we need to talk about, then that's more of like a Thursday thing. Um, and so that's how we set it up. I do one-on-ones with them once a month. Our CFO does meetings with them every other month, and we track those points, and we have a graph, and they can see on the graph their points versus their pay. And once they're into the business a little bit, it's not rocket science. The points go up, the pay goes up. The prospecting points go down, the pay goes down. I mean, it's really pretty simple. But as we know, it's like anything in life, right? If you're trying to gain muscle, lose weight, whatever it is you're trying to do for yourself, it's the consistency over time. That's the hard part, right? Like real estate's not complicated, but doing the activities you need to do consistently over time is not easy.
Yeah. So when you're talking about points, you're talking about daily success habits.
Yes.
And well, Selena, will you throw that daily success habit tracker in the chat below so that anyone that doesn't have it can grab it? Um,
It seems, in case you don't mind, it seems a little daunting, but you should be able to do that in an hour and a half.
and so, do you guys have a structure that's set up and a daily structure of when that happens for people, or are you doing it all together? Is it just up to them to do it on their own? What does that look like for how you work?
So we do their perfect day. So we do when they're brand new, more strict about you have to be in the office for X number of hours, every day. And that's when they do their prospecting. And then if they're going to show or have other appointments or preview, they do that in the afternoon. But now, once they're about a year in, we don't really dictate that exactly. We do call night once a month where we eat dinner and usually have some sort of a spiff around, whatever the thing is for the evening. The next one we're doing is actually rewarding the number of no's that they get. Whoever has the
Hmm.
most rejections is going to win the prize. So you just have to mix it up and kind of keep it fun. But and then that's what leads to another thing I think that goes back to accountability is about every other month we have some sort of spiff going. And I think you have to gamify it a little bit for people. Like they'll work way harder for $100 massage gift card than they will to close $1 million house. I mean, it's crazy, but that's just humanly, I think, how we're wired. So you have to mix it up and you have to constantly have games and activities around. And for us, we don't typically reward the closings or the volume or the units. We reward the activities, the prospecting activities. And I think that's really important.
That is really important. Really, really important. Because, we so often like want to focus on the result. And it's not about that because the prospecting activities will lead to the result.
Well,
Prospecting and follow-up,
as a
right?
new brand new agent, Casey, I would get very frustrated because you would sit in a sales meeting and there everybody needs to go get two listings this week. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'd love to have two listings, but I don't have a clue how to get from here to there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really teaching that. And it's a great skill set, right? Because uh if somebody is able to be their own rainmaker and generate their own business, they can see whatever kind of success they want to see in real estate. Which brings me to the value of being on a team when you have a team that's a high functioning team like the one that you have. And you mentioned one of the members that's on your team that's a top producing agent on the team. He's been there for years. So in your experience, like why he knows how to sell real estate and obviously has learned to do it at a high level as a result of being affiliated in the Robby Brady team. And so, from a longevity perspective and a retention perspective, talk about why someone stays if they know how to go out and do it on their own, and the value that you create as a team lead for that person to be there long term.
Let me quote Jim Knowlton for you. People come for the leads, they stay for a person, you know.
Mhm.
And that's part of it. It's not all of it, but it's part of it. So you have to provide, like, just like if you think about going on a listing appointment and you're talking to that seller, you better have these are the 10 things that we do, and this is why you need to list with us, right? Like, you need to be able to just, well, if you're the team lead and you're talking to a new agent, you need to be able to explain these are the reasons you need to be on our team. And if it's hype, they're going to figure that out pretty darn quick if there's just no meat there. So I think it's several things. I think it's family, it's culture, right? It's support. He just went to Italy for 2 weeks and saw the Olympics, and he listed 6 houses the 2 days before he left. He got back from his vacation, and four of them were under contract. Now, if he were an individual agent, that might be a problem, and he didn't have to worry about it, because he knew we had his back, like we've got it handled. So I think it's a myriad of things, but I think certainly the support, the leads, the accountability, and he's a high eye. Like he is one of the best prospectors I've ever seen. He's not super organized, so I think the accountability, and if he were sitting here, he would say the same thing. And that daily meeting keeps him on track, and he knows that he needs that accountability.
Yeah, I love that. So there's something that the disc doesn't address or teach, but you just mentioned what it is, and that is if you think of it like a clock, a D at the top, and so D would be 12 o'clock, I would be 3 o'clock, S would be 6 o'clock, C would be 9 o'clock. Is that for anyone who has a very strong whatever it is, and in his instance, it's a strong I,
Mhm.
which makes him he's super interpersonal. He's going to be great at sales, building the relationships. He's going to be a hot
Mhm.
mess generally.
Yep.
And I can say hot mess because, Rick was a high IS.
Uh-huh.
Is that like, oh, these papers and the piles of papers and the Ziploc bags with the cards in them and traveling with a
Yep.
bag of all of the papers that gets spread out on the
Mhm.
hotel room, table as soon as we get to
Yep.
wherever we're going, and that when we're home is on our dining room table, right? Like just crazy and colors and and scraps and
Uh,
everything. Like the
uh-huh.
high, no, these I know exactly what every one of them means because there's a relationship attached to them, right?
Yep.
So we've got somebody whose natural style is that I, and the rotation clockwise is on the disc is what's going to make that person be more effective, right? So the structure and the stability piece that comes from rotating into the S, which is what the team provides. And you're talking about accountability, that structure, that support, and that is going to allow that person with that behavioral style to be the most effective in that environment. You take them out of that environment, and they're still all the great things that they are about the natural style that they're in high I, but now they're just a mess with nobody to handle it because they're off the rails. So,
Yep. Yep.
thinking
That's
about
perfect.
like how you communicate that experience, right? Because one of the things that people will see is like, oh, if and we in my language we call it the revolving door effect of like if someone is wants to come into a team to learn the business, the revolving door effect is they come in, they learn everything they need to learn, and then they go out the door and they go and they do it on their own. And what you're saying
Hmm.
is that as a team lead with a vision, that there's not everybody's allowed to walk in that door. It's a very strategic on who gets in the door to begin with. And then once they're in the door, there's a reason for them to stay long term because they're going to be able to be better at what they do and how they do it as a result of working within the parameters of the team and the organization when you've taken the time to really create it in that way, which based on results you have.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, Casey.
So I would anybody that has questions for Robby, feel free to come jump in, stick them in the chat for anything that you want to know specifically based on where you may be in your personal business today. If you're looking to ramp up your business as an individual agent, or if you're, kind of at max capacity and going, okay, well, what are the steps for me to now get some leverage and really have a business structure that runs differently or more effectively than the one that might be in now. Any questions are welcome. Would love to hear from some of the people that are on the call before I keep going. Anthony.
Hey, Robbie. Anthony in New York, thank you for doing this. Question. I'm a solo agent,
Hmm.
and I fortunately do have a number of listings right now. And I also am working with a number of buyers, and I just can't be in two places at once. What I normally do is I will give the buyers to people at my company that I know that I know well here, and we arrange a referral fee or some type of split. But at what point do you not do you stop doing that and actually have a proper team slash buyer agent working with you that you just have working with you rather than farming it out to people in your company? Like where
So,
where where do you draw that line at what point?
Anthony, I mean, it's everybody's decision, right, where you are, but it sounds to me like you're ready. And if you wanted to slow roll into it, another option would be do you find a younger, newer agent in your office and say, hey, would you mind being my showing assistant? And you just pay them to show. So that's one option, right? And then another option would be bringing somebody on. The other nice thing about the showing agent is I think you could sort of test the waters to see, is it a good fit with this person before you decided to actually make it formal and bring them on as a team member. And then the other big question that I always ask people is, do you really want to manage a group of people? And, if the answer is yes, then I think you launch. And it goes back to what Casey said a few minutes ago. You do want to provide them services, and there do need to be reasons they want to be on your team, but you don't feed them 100%, right? Like they have to be able to work and prospect and do their own business, but by leveraging you and your experience and your years in the business and your listings, it launches them much faster. So that's part of what you're offering.
Yeah.
Great question. Who else?
Yeah.
I know not everyone could be 100% completely dialed in on their business because this is real estate.
Learn something every day.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any other questions per se from anyone at this point in the conversation. So, here's my next question for you is you've been at this 23 years, and what do you see next? And how do you
Well,
what's the next evolution and iteration based on where you're at now?
so for me, it has been a bit of a process. And so, like Anthony, I worked with buyers and sellers for a long time. And even after the team started, I still, work with buyers and sellers. I pretty much don't work with buyers at all now. I mean, not 100%, but 95% of my business is listings. And so I think, it does help you focus more on that. Um, and it also allows you to feed some of these other agents and get them going. And to Anthony's point too, back to your question is, you also get to then hold on to that residual business, right? Those referrals that come from those people, you keep it in the team. So that's another thing to kind of think about, right? You probably are losing some residual business on the back end because that other agent's keeping them in their sphere. Um, so thinking forward there, Casey, I think, I'm 54. And so, you do think about planning for the future and, some potential retirement at, I don't know what age, some age. And so for me, I think, hiring a team lead at some point, if there's a good fit, would be good. We also are in the process of looking for another admin, another empowered champion. So, being very selective in those roles, I think, if this done right, could certainly allow me to step back a little bit. But certainly I enjoy what I do. I like what I do. I have no plans to, to do anything different in the short term or near term. But the goal is just to slowly grow the team. We're not looking to have a huge team, but I think if we could hire good 5 or 6 people that we could hang on to, we'd be in sort of a sweet spot to maybe up some of what we offer the agents budget, budget wise. You just got more money to play with.
Mhm. So that brings up a great question, which is where do you find great talent?
So that is a job in and of itself. And I will be honest, I have not done a great job this year so far focusing on prospecting. But it is something I should be and will be time blocking for in the coming months because, like your listings and your other business, if you're not working on it, it's not going to be great. People will fall in your lap, right? Just like listings fall in your lap sometimes, or buyers do. But yeah, you got to work on it. So I'm developing a top 50 list just for recruitment. We are going to be doing events where we invite our co-brokes to for a coffee or a glass of wine or a beer. We're going to make that a quarterly event at this point. Try to get a little traction, a little momentum there. We also have used WiseHire in the past and actually had pretty good luck with that. I've had good luck attending actually people's open houses. If I see a young agent that's hosting an open, sometimes I'll swing by and just see how it's going and chat with them a little bit. I don't give them obviously a hard pitch at their open house, but then if they're on the list, it's just a touch, right? Um, so I think there's lots of good things that you can do to attract, and you can also incentivize your team members, right, financially or otherwise, to help you, bring people on if they've had a good co-broke experience. We tend to do the best with either brand new agents or agents that have been on another team and sort of had a sour taste. Because I think if they've been on another team, then they really appreciate what we do. If you start here, sometimes I think you may take it for granted a little bit too. So it's nice to have somebody pop on the team that's like, oh my gosh, we didn't have any of this at our other team. So it just helps lift everybody up.
I love that. So what I'm hearing you say is that for attracting talent, it's the same thing as attracting clients, which is being in relationship with people, going where the people are, creating events that are going to bring value and people into those conversations, and then you find where the match is. So we're back to the relational aspect of like everything we do in the business is relational.
Mm.
And then, choosing. I have a coach that I'm working with, and we were talking earlier this week. He's like, okay, how do you take the avatar of of somebody that you're so energized to be in their space with, right? There's specifically we were talking about um, someone that I'm building a relationship with that's, completely out of state and has seen my stuff on social media. And he's 3 years in the business, did 75 transactions last year on a team, and is 25 years old. But just spoke on a big stage about his experience. And he reached out to me to help him crack the speaking aspect of that because he's seen me speak
Mhm.
a lot at real estate events, through social media. And he's like, so where do you, and the conversation with the coach was like, what is it about that person? Is that's somebody that you'd want to work with? And I'm like, well, he's definitely got a great work ethic. He's internally motivated and he's definitely doing the work. He's got the structure. He's got the perfect day already. He's executing the perfect day, got the mindset, all that. It's like, where do you go to find those people? And in that avatar and being really clear on what you're looking for. And so from what you've shared, it's sometimes those people are going to get referred to you, so you're utilizing the team and the relationships they have because they know culturally what's a fit for what it is that you're building. And so just like in real estate, you get the repeat or referral business through working that sphere top 50, but then also being open and being really clear on who your avatar is, that you would see and want to develop that kind of relationship. Whether you walk into an open house and you meet them there and see and experience them there. I did that. I did that recently here in the market that I'm in between Monterey, Pacific Grove, and Carmel, and I toured 6 open houses one Sunday, and there was one agent that I would one out of the six.
Mhm.
The others that were there, it was clear they were holding it for someone else, or they were there to, hope a buyer or seller that was ready to buy or sell walked in the door and just didn't have it, right? uh,
Yeah.
for the avatar that I would be looking to be in business with, right? And so getting that belly to belly experience is so important. And taking the time to do that, right? It takes time. And I think in today's world, and I'd love for you to speak to this because there's so much conversation now and topics around AI and how we are utilizing that to be more efficient or effective in business. And so, from your experience and perspective, as that's coming into, an inherent piece of our world, not coming into, it's here. Where do you see the balance of that versus what the soft skills, which are not actually hard skills, called being in relationship with people? How do you see those two things coming together um, in our profession?
Well, there's a lot of money in AI. There's tons of money. So the markets are dumping really billions of dollars into this research. And so I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes. From what I have been told and read and heard in other situations, we're looking at potential AI being able to help filter through all those leads that do come in because we know the Google and other paid ads that you do are tough. It's a long process. The leads in our CRM average about 370 days before they convert. And so that is a long slog. But if you've got AI that can drip them with text conversations and emails throughout that year and a half, certainly much easier and probably more consistent communication than an agent's going to do. Right. So I
Yeah.
think there's great potential there. We use it a lot already for business planning, using it kind of as a thought partner. You can upload your business plan and say, hey, ask me one question at a time to gain knowledge, to help me refine this, help me, what am I missing? What am I not seeing? What's coming? You can just prompt it the best you can, and it will be eye opening. So I think a lot of people just want to use it to freshen your texts and your emails and your socials, which is fine, right? But I think if you use it more as a thought partner, you're going to get a lot more out of it. You can throw your CMA in there. I wouldn't say to have do it, but once you've done the CMA, put it in there. Um, and I think it's pretty valuable. We all know, I think, because you've heard, like it can hallucinate and it certainly can come up with some crazy things. But by far and wide, if you do it correctly, it's pretty amazing. So one other aside to that is there's a lot of talk now about these exclusive listings and then the ones that they're going to keep in house as coming soon. And that has a lot to do, I think, with AI as well. So I think AI is going to negate that. I think it's not going to be a problem because people from now on are not going to go to a big box site to search. I think they're going to go to AI, and AI will pull those listings, even if they're non MLS listings. And the consumers will, I think, in a not a pretty short amount of time, will still see every listing, whether it's compiled on whichever site you want to name or whatever company you want to name.
Yeah, it's our industry is so interesting in it's always changing, right?
Yeah.
And does the consumer understand the impact of that versus what's the impact to the agent versus what's the impact to a company and the bottom line is we're in a world that is high tech for sure. However, real estate's always going to be high touch
Yep.
because there's some things that you're never going to get around in the human component and human element of what we do. And so I think, my perspective, and I'm in conversations with a lot of people, is that the soft skills of being able to listen, to be able to communicate, the actual human element. Because we know AI is great for a lot of things. However, pretty much word on the street is ChatGPT is going to always tell you what you want to hear and it's always going to be fantastic versus like actually having a
Mhm.
person that has an invested interest in the relationship and what's best, that fiduciary relationship that we have as we work with people. So if there's one thing that we haven't talked about that you would think would be important for agents in any context that are in their real estate journey, whether they're newer in the business or more seasoned in the business, just from your years of experience and everything that's brought you to where you're at today, what would be one thing that we haven't touched on yet you feel would be beneficial?
So, there are so many things. It's kind of hard to, I think, nail down one thing that we haven't talked about. But certainly, I think we did talk about client events. We did, right?
Hmm.
I think what else we have not touched on. I think we haven't talked about volunteering. So I think that's another big piece of your community development. I serve on two boards currently, and we also help with several nonprofits. And so I think that can also be a bucket of business for you. But also, I would caution you if you're going to be the chair of a board, which I'm doing now, if you're not committed to that and you don't do a good job, it could have the opposite effect. So I'd say, if you're going to step into that, just make sure that you're going to give it, your all, and it's going to shine and it's going to do well because it will be a reflection of you. But giving back to the community, I think is great. And, we do highlight some of that in our listing appointments that we're not just takers, but we also give back. And we do it because we want to, but a nice side effect is it does help your business at the same time.
I love that. So, knowing what you know today, if there was one thing that you like could take the last 23 years and do differently sooner or not at all, what would that be?
So, I think we talked about, the hiring slower, I think, on the early set, we already discussed, but also getting those systems in place sooner and more refined is huge because if you systematize before you scale, it's going to be much easier. Once you've scaled and then you try to backfill, it's pretty tough. And I'm saying that because I've lived that. So take that. The other big one is, protect your time. Sometimes saying no to something is saying yes to other more positive things. So I think be very careful with your time. We're all, busy and we all sometimes like to say we're really busy, but are we being productive? Are we spending our time wisely? Are we spending time with our spouse, our kids, our friends, our spiritual, cultural, religious, whatever it is? So I think that's another huge red flag for us that does not get spoken about often enough, probably. A lot of realtors have been divorced, right? So that's another big one, I think, is be very careful of your time and then build your culture intentionally, right? Don't just let the culture sort of slide in. So really give that some thought. I think back to Casey's AI would be a great place to put that in and then ask it to poke holes in it. So I think those are definitely some of the things, Casey, if I had to start over or rethink some of the mistakes, those would probably be the highlight reel right there.
Yeah. So I do have a question for you on that because you mentioned it and it's really important is that, in my experience, a lot of people get into the industry of real estate because they're looking for, freedom around how they want to work and there's flexibility with it, right? It's really challenging to get actual freedom in the industry of real estate. And there's, it takes specific things for that to happen. So in an industry that, someone can walk into that's so flexible that obviously there's no cap on what you can earn, what you can generate. It's up to you to be able to do that. And then we talk about I won't call it work-life balance because I don't believe there's such a thing as balance. I think when we do things at a really high level, like we're not in balance. And that doesn't mean everything has to be equal because it's never going to be equal. However, how do you be somebody who is doing really great in your career but also really great in your personal life. And so, how do you, for your organization, how are you coaching your agents to strike a balance of both? And so that they are living lives that they really want to live, that are by design, that they're energized and fulfilled in, and at the same time having the experience that they want to have from a professional and career standpoint.
A few of my team members might could coach me better than I coach them on that topic. But we do speak on it. We bring people in to speak on it occasionally. And I think it is so important. And so my thing is we're all quick to say, oh, well, I can't do that because I've got a listing appointment or oh, I've got a closing, almost as a defense kind of thing. And my thing is you protect your yoga or your run or your family dinner or your soccer game for your kid or whatever it is, if it's on your calendar, is an appointment, just like a closing, just like a listing appointment, and you don't make any excuses. So, if Casey's talking to me and says, "Hey, Robbie, can we go see this house today at 5 o'clock?" and you got your kids' soccer, you go, "Casey, I've got an appointment at 5 o'clock. Could we go at 7:30? Or would, 9 o'clock tomorrow be better for you?" In case he's going to pick one of those. She's not going to go, "You're fired," you know? And I think we all run around in that fear of, we have to be available, but you're also not showing that you're super professional. How many professional services do you call and get instant gratification, right? Like you have to. So that's my biggest thing is put your things on your calendar. They are an appointment and they're non-negotiable.
So important. Love that. Protect your time. When you value your time, other people will value your time as well.
Correct.
All right. Well, this is everyone's last chance for any questions that may have bubbled up during our conversation to be able to come off mute and ask them. I'll give you all of about a total of 3 seconds to do that.
I just want to thank Robbie for joining us today. I've known Robbie for, boy, we got to be coming up on 10 years now, 8 years anyway. And he is the perfect example of a smart person who is very open to coaching and looking at things differently. And I think that he's probably one of the people that I've watched grow and change the most in my career as a coach. And I could not be prouder of him and his team. And I love every opportunity I get because I learn just as much from him as I hope he learns from me. And you guys were really lucky to get him on this call today. And I wish that I could have been here. I apologize, Robbie. But I'm sure he did a great job, and I look forward to listening to it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
that,
Jim.
Jim. Appreciate it.
All right. So in closing, for everyone that's on this call, I'll, go back to where we started, which is that every next level of ourselves is going to be a revision in our mindset and our skill set. And so as a question for each person that's on the call today, intentionally ask yourself, where am I investing to take my mindset and skill sets to the next level in the areas that are important for me to grow? Some of you, your greatest opportunities are going to be in your personal life. And there's mindset and skill set adjustments there. Selena and I were in a conversation with someone earlier this week that we've been on multiple calls with, and she's come to this call and she's like, "I know I'm making a change and it's going to be hard." And she's talking about how hard it's going to be. And, it's like, well, uh, that's her mindset. And my mindset's totally different. My mindset is whatever I decide is the experience I'm going to have is the one I'm going to go create. And she keeps saying it's going to be hard. I'm like, I'm really clear that you're going to go create a hard experience for yourself because that's how you're looking at it. I would not, that's not the experience I would have doing the same thing that you're going to walk into because I think about it differently. So for everybody that's on the call today, take an inventory. Where is there for you to think differently in your mindset and skill set in what area of your life? Is it in your personal life? Is it somewhere in your business that's going to require a different mindset, a different skill set for you to go to the next iteration and version of you to take your business or your life to the next level? The truth is, all of us have those areas, right? And they're there whether we realize they're there or not. And so sometimes the hardest thing to do is actually go take a little walk in the mirror and look at it because we don't want to see what's looking back. And we just want to function the way that we're comfortable functioning because it's been enough to get us to where we're at today. And the thought of it being that confrontive to actually look and see what might be looking back at us is just like not something that we don't want to do. However, I'm going to encourage everyone to be willing to do that because I believe that nobody comes to this call, nobody in this community or in this group of people that doesn't want to take where they're at as a human and where they're at as a business person to the next level. And so going to the next level requires a different set of questions. It requires a different conversation. It requires a different level of transparency and really being willing to not just go, "Oh, is there?" but look for what those things are. And if you're having a challenge finding them, ask someone that knows you really well. I'm sure they'll be able to tell you right off the bat because sometimes it's really easy to see in other people and it's harder to see in ourselves. However, I've taken the approach is that whenever there's people in my life and I'm seeing something very distinct for them, like I have a friend right now who's very much in resistance about positive change. And so for me, it's like it's painful to watch how much resistance there is for this friend in my life that is resisting positive change. And so I look at myself and I go, I know I'm only able to see in direct proportion in someone else something that exists inside me. So where am I that resistant to positive change in my life? And I'm looking like actively, where am I that resistant? Because obviously, here's this person that's in my life that I'm seeing it in her. It's got to be, where is it for me so that I can identify it? Because I might not realize it about myself and go do something about it. And so for each of us, I think that's the opportunity that we each have, as we move forward in our businesses and our lives. And that's really, we grow the humans, and then the business grows. And then when the business grows, the impact grows. And as the impact grows, then communities are touched. And that's really what we're about, is those relationships. And whether that's on the consumer side with buyers and sellers, or that's on the agent side and the communities that we build and the relationships that we have and that we choose to keep in this industry, there's a great opportunity for each and every one of us. So thank you, Jim. You look like you want to say something.
I do want to say one thing, and I apologize for showing up late and then commenting, but what you just said is very relevant to Robbie, and I want to expand on it just a little bit. One of the coolest things about he hasn't bought any of this, meaning Robbie is not a sync user. Well, he has the services, but that's not where he comes from. Robbie has, of all of the clients I've had and all of the time I've been coaching, Robbie has the best community involvement of anyone I've ever said. His tribe is so big because he is such an amazing human. He's taught others to be an amazing human, and he shares and gives so readily, not only with his real estate community, with his other endeavors that he enjoys. I remember in the pandemic when we were all freaking out about how we were going to do it, it didn't even almost phase Robbie because he just went into help others mode. And one of the most interesting things to think about in watching what is an amazing real estate agent and business owner is his name, his reputation is what makes him great. This is not something he bought. This is something he built, and it is incredible. And so when you were talking about people, Casey, that is you were describing Robbie Brady.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And
Yeah.
one thing I would add real quick, and I know we're at the top of the hour, but what Casey said is so important. I think that you do, and I would also just encourage you, if it makes you feel overwhelmed, just pick one thing, right? Like, you don't have to do 10 things today. You don't have to do 5 things today. Just pick one thing and focus on that, and then you can expand later. So just conquer one thing.
I love that. My one thing is myself. That's a big job. I'm going to work on it though. Constant work in progress. So thank you so much for who you are, Robbie, and your contribution to the community, larger community here. Congratulations on all the great things that you have created up until now, and that I'm clear and confident that you'll continue to create ongoing. We'll look forward to having you back and getting updates as you go if you're open to it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
thanks again, everyone. Make it a great day, and we'll see you the first week in April for our next Free Friday coaching call.
Thank
Make
you.
it a great day, everyone. Bye.